Today is March 12th, 2025. My name is Bobby Goodman, and I am interviewing Richard Fogel about his days at the Columbian Club. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you here to share your memories. Let's just start off. Richard, when did you become a member of the Columbian Club?
You know, I came, after law school, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I came back to Dallas 5 years later in 1971. And my dad had already been a member. And so I was able to go out to the club as his guest. It was unlimited at the time. And then finally, when I was able to afford to join, I joined, I think it was in 1976. And may have been a year or two before that. But because I was a legacy from my dad having been a member, it was very inexpensive to join at that time. And so I played golf out there and enjoyed all of the wonderful times we had out there for about 10 years. And then, before that, I had to quit because my kids were into soccer and football and baseball, and I was coaching most of their teams. So I had to quit the club for 10 years and then rejoined in '86. And that was a time when the kids were almost grown, and they were in high school and weren't wanting to do anything with their dad anymore. So I rejoined the club, and just, my old group was still there, and we had wonderful times.
So when you joined originally in mid-70s sometime, what did the membership kind of look like? Do you recall, were they people your age, or were they an older generation or younger, or how?
Well, both. I mean, there were people like my father, your father,
right,
that age group, and then there was all of us who had joined as legacy members, but the third generation didn't join. There were very few who joined. My son, didn't join. I mean, he would come out and play golf with me every now and then. But by that time, everything in Dallas had changed. You could go to a restaurant and get a drink, whereas you didn't have to belong to a private club to get a drink. That was one of the things that happened, I think, that started the membership in decline. I think at one point we had like 650 members, and about maybe 40% were golfing members. The rest were social members.
So when you joined, what was, like you said, you were a legacy, what was that process like? Did you have to go through an application process, or do you recall, or did you have to go up in front of the membership committee? How did that work? Do you recall?
I think I was interviewed, by a member of the board or membership committee, and but it was a foregone conclusion because I was a legacy.
Right.
But that may have been for when I became a member again in '86 when I did that. I don't think that I had to be interviewed when I joined as a legacy in 1976.
I see. So this is maybe, I'm going to direct this maybe how your dad felt when he joined, and then again when you, the reasons for joining. Do you think when your dad joined, was there a feeling of anti-Semitism that made him go to the Jewish Country Club? And I'll ask the same thing about you, but as well.
I never really, I was in college at the time. My dad joined. I think he joined in '60 or '61, so I was still at UT and undergrad and law school. But I don't think we ever discussed, why he joined the Columbian Club, except we knew that it was a Jewish club. It was later on when I rejoined that I understood that, Dallas Country Club, Northwood, Brook Hollow Golf Club did not admit, or hadn't admitted any Jews. I think they've since done that. But, you know, that was the only place for Jewish people to go. I think the club probably started back in the mid-50s, maybe 1955. Built a 9-hole golf course. Lee Trevino was on the construction crew, wow. Which he's later told us. And he's even got a photo of him driving one of the tractors out there. You know, then I understood, you know, why there was a Columbian Club. And it wasn't overt anti-Semitism, you know, nobody, I don't know, a time or two there was some people that got onto the property and cut swastikas in one or two of the greens from time to time. That happened, but not frequently.
Let's see, so your relationship with the club, since you were a member quite a few years, committees, board, involved with any of the leadership?
Well,
yeah,
I can't remember exactly when I was asked to come on the board, but I think I spent 8 or 10 years on the board. Worked my way up from, I was secretary, treasurer, first vice president, or second vice president and first vice president. And I was about to be nominated to be president. This would have been in the late 90s. And the nominating committee decided that there had been too many lawyers who had been presiding over the club. And it was time to get, you know, a business person. And so they nominated Alan Klein to be president, who was a lawyer. So they passed over me, and I kind of took myself out of the running for anything further. You know, I'd served on golf committees, and you know, I was chairman of the golf committee, and that gave me an opportunity to be the head of our Ryder Cup event a couple of years in a row, and I don't know if you remember that, but that was a lot of fun.
Right. Obviously, very involved at the club.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little about the importance of the club to you, and let's start off with you. What did the club mean to you?
Well, you know, it was a home away from home. You know, my dad used to be the bingo caller out there on Sundays, you know, and so I would take the kids out there. My oldest son won a big jackpot, you know, what do you call it on the bingo card when you block out?
Blackout. Blackout.
Blackout. Won a TV set, and everybody was complaining that it was fixed, you know, that somehow my 8-year-old son knew, you know, what was going on. But, you know, gosh, what it meant to me, it was a place to go New Year's Eve, July 4th, Labor Day, all the holidays we spent out there, you know, the Jewish holidays and the secular holidays. And Naomi and I got married out there 24 years ago yesterday.
Nice.
And it was just such a special place. Marty Cohen was married out there his second time, and just there were so many events that and so many incidents that happened out there over the years. But it was home away from home.
And your family, you talked about your kids. Did they grow up at the club, or?
Oh yeah, swimming. My younger son played tennis out there. I played tennis. We had the indoor courts and the outdoor courts, and there were we had tennis leagues, and it was everything. I mean, it was like I said, it was home away from home, and an activity that I enjoyed every minute of it. The golf was unparalleled. I mean, you know, aside from the big clubs that we know about today, like Preston Trail and Dallas National, the Columbian Club everyone talked about the best greens in the town, the best layout in the town, the most hidden from what people didn't know that even existed, because it was surrounded by industrial buildings and built around a 40-acre lake. It was just beautiful.
And being a member for as long as you were, and then my understanding maybe still out there at in the old club site, did you obviously met, I assume, made a lot of friends and at the club
Oh,
moved
sure.
forward?
I mean, you know, from like Lester Melnick, you know, who passed away recently, who was my dad's closest friend, and then he became my dear friend. Your father, the Zelazny, I mean, the Gutos. I mean, we were neighbors, and we were all members together. And we're still out there. All of our sons became good friends and played golf, not necessarily at the club, but some did, some still do. It was, other than growing up and going to mineral wells on the holidays, the club replaced that. That's where we spent all of our time, especially, you know, during the holidays.
Sounds like lifelong friendships were made there.
Well, absolutely. And today, you know, we've transformed from the Columbian Club to the Honors Club when we went golf only, which had resulted in lawsuits and, you know, among members, and then Albert Huddleston coming in. He's Bunker Hunt's son-in-law, and he paid off all our debt and kept the club out of bankruptcy because we were getting close. And he's, now we're called Merido, and there's still what he calls the remnants, which refers to the old Columbian Club members. We were given special incentives to join and to remain as members, where a lot of those who were under 70 left and went to other places. But today, the remnants who remain, we have lunch out there every Thursday, and it's still, you know, it's memorable. He hasn't changed the clubhouse at all. I mean, interior-wise, yes, but the exterior is still the way it was, and it'll always be that way, at least as long as he owns it. So we're still enjoying it. None of us that meet on Thursdays at Low, except for one or two, even hit balls off the driving range and do play golf occasionally, but some of us just go out there for the fun and enjoyment of being with one another.
Do you mind sharing who some of the remnants are?
Well, there's Billy Guto, Jerry Grubstein, Harold Kay, David Glickman, Donnie Zale occasionally, Gene Friedman, who's amazing. Of course, Lester Melnick was with us every Thursday until about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and there's still 7. Martin Schaefer. So there's still 7 or 8 of us that
Nice.
Congregate out there every Thursday, and unless the room is otherwise taken by other members. You know, it's so different though, because when I used to walk in there, I knew everybody, you know, in the old Columbian Club or Honors Club days. Today, we're probably 2 or 3% of the membership, and so I only know my friends and, you know, some of the others that are former. Some have come back from having left the club and have rejoined Merido. It's different, but it's still the club.
Yeah. So obviously an avid golfer and involved with the golf committees and stuff. What are some of the other activities that the club offered that you and your family participated in?
Well, as I mentioned, when we were Columbian Club, we still had a swimming pool. We had tennis courts, indoor and outdoor. So we used to participate in those activities. Now, none of that is there. We just are golf.
Right.
And it's, there's a lot of golf pros, professionals like Jordan Spieth and Will Zalatoris, so recognizable names in the PGA Tour. A couple who've gone to the Live Tour, and one of the things the club has done is extended itself to the Live Golf program. We had an event last June, and we're going to have another one next summer out there with Live, and it completely transformed the property while they built all of their facilities. But really, I kind of miss the pool, and you know, we used to come in on 18, and everybody would go up to by the 18th green and look through the fence, and you could see all the family members out there, and the guys would wave to their children, and the children would come down to the green, and it was just so much fun.
Before I get to some of your other memories, I have to ask you, tell me about what was the deal with the food there? The food at the club?
Oh, well, I didn't even, you know, I've never really been a foodie, but I mean, reputation-wise, best food in Dallas, best restaurant in Dallas. And, you know, we used to have these lobster nights, which, you know, you had waiting lists. Sometimes people would order more than one lobster, you know, and always run out. And the breakfast, the lunches, the dinners, we had Thursday night gourmet dinners. You probably remember Gabby, you know, who was our the head of food and beverage. He was the greatest French guy, and the women all loved him because of his beautiful accent, and he made everything special. All the dinners were special, and you know, the quality of the food was beyond belief. New Year's Eve, they used to have we'd start out with cocktails in the cocktail lounge, and then they'd open the door. People couldn't wait to get into the doors to get to the food. There'd be buffets lined up with every kind of imaginable seafood. The shrimp were incredible, the oysters, the crab meat. I mean, and people would line up to get into that buffet, and then they'd go back to their tables and say, "Where's the food already?" And then they would bring in the steaks and the seafood dishes, and the food was fabulous.
That's awesome. Richard, will you share a few of your most memorable, your memories of the club? What are a couple of your favorites? Have any offhand?
Well, you know, the whole thing about the Columbian Club and its, as it's evolved over the years, is about friendship. I grew up in Dallas, and I went to school with a lot of the same people that I see out there, both in elementary and junior high and high school and college. And so many of us have been members over the years, and some of us, as I've said earlier, we still meet out there and, you know, have lunch. And, you know, it was great to have a Jewish club. I can tell you some of the reasons why I think that it didn't survive, but those of us that was near and dear to us, and from golf and from the dining and the holidays and everything, have remained friends all these years, and I think that was the glue that kept us together. So that's the most important thing. I love the golf. I mean, no question about that. But it was the same group. I mean, we had 12 guys. We'd show up on the first tee and throw up balls and see who was going to play in which foursome, you know. And it was something to look forward to. And I'd try to get out there late in the afternoon, try to play a couple of rounds of golf. I played with your dad one day, and so it was great. But like I said earlier, the third generation, for a variety of reasons, didn't need to belong to that club.
Right. Well, I think you were kind of reading my mind, because my next question really is, why do you think the Columbian Club closed?
Well, there were a couple of reasons. First of all, liquor by the drink became possible in Dallas. You know, first you had to show a driver's license or have a card. Excuse me. And so you didn't need a private club to go get a drink at a restaurant. So, and that wasn't the biggest thing because Jews don't drink a lot anyway. But Albert Huddleston serves more liquor in a day than we did in a month. The other thing was that a lot of housing developments came up, Glen Eagles, everything developed out north with golf courses. And so a lot of the young people would go and buy their homes out there and didn't need a Columbian Club. There were no restrictions on membership like we had when we were growing up. And even those clubs opened the doors to Jews and to blacks. And so that kind of kept everything from growing. And then it just started declining as people died or quit playing golf, moved out of town or what have you. But it kind of died a natural death.
Right. Are you familiar with the new Columbian Club?
You know, I've heard about it. I haven't been there. I'm kind of surprised about it because I would have expected, and I don't know, that Albert Huddleston would have secured the name himself, but apparently not. And I find it offensive that they're using the name, the logo, 1881, which was the founding of the old Columbian Club. They use it in a little different way. We have the Phoenix bird on 2 golf clubs like this, and they use it with olives on toothpicks instead. And it's, I know Brian Rudd. I know Larry, his dad. I don't know if they were members of the club. I don't think so. But I'm a traditionalist, and I think, I believe in the old tradition, and we should have, if we didn't keep the name, I think Albert should have.
Well, we may have to go there together and eat some of the Parmesan bagels I understand they have.
Yeah.
I do have one last question, but before I ask it, any questions or things that you'd like to address that I didn't bring up? Any thoughts, memories, anything that you'd like to say about the club?
You know, again, the memories are about the friendships, and we're able to still keep that alive as long as we're alive. It saddens me that a lot of people had to leave the club and go elsewhere, like the TPC Sports Club in Las Colinas. I miss playing golf with guys like you and your brother, and since I don't play golf anymore, you know, the golf is not the primary thing that I think about in terms of the club, but it's still about the friendship.
Very nice. So if I'm going to bring out, what is the first thing that kind of comes to your mind when I say Columbian Club?
Well, golf. And like I've said over and over again, friendship.
Very nice. Richard, I appreciate you sharing your memories about the Columbian Club.
My pleasure.
Thank you.